LEGO might finally fix the biggest problem with the Lord of the Rings theme. After years of giant collector sets with few minifigures, a new leak says we're getting a minifigure scale Oliphaunt diorama in January 2027. And if the rumors are true, this set could tell us a lot more about where LEGO plans to take Lord of the Rings next. So let's break down what the set might look like, which figures could be included, and why this could be the start of a much bigger shift for the theme. Now, we don't have all the details, but according to the leak, this will be a large brick-built Oliphaunt displayed on a diorama-style base, and it will include minifigures. At 2,017 pieces, I'm actually pretty optimistic about the scale. An Oliphaunt is one of those builds that really needs to feel massive, and around 2,000 pieces should give LEGO enough room to do it justice. I even found a fan-made model on Rebrickable at a similar piece count, and honestly, it looks fantastic. So I'm hoping LEGO goes for something along these lines. What has me even more excited, though, is the minifigure potential. One of the biggest complaints about modern Lord of the Rings has been the lack of figures. Barad-dûr and Minas Tirith both felt pretty light on minifigures for their price points, and even smaller sets like the Balrog Book Nook and Sauron Bust only included a single figure. An Oliphaunt almost demands a larger cast, and I think this could be a really good sign for the future of the theme. There are only two major scenes LEGO could pull from. The first is Faramir's ambush on the Haradrim and Ithilien, but I think the far more likely option is the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Not only is it the most iconic Oliphaunt scene in the entire trilogy, but it's also easier to recreate on a relatively simple display base, allowing more of the budget and piece count to go towards the Oliphaunt itself. If that ends up being the scene, I think a realistic minifigure lineup could include the Harad Commander, aka the Black Serpent, a few Haradrim warriors riding the Oliphaunt, King Theoden, Eomer, Legolas, Gimli, and a handful of Rohan soldiers fighting below. Personally, I think 3 Haradrim and 3 Rohan soldiers is probably the sweet spot. That would bring the total figure count to around 11 minifigures, which would only be 2 more than the Shire, another set with the exact same piece count. Of course, I'd love to see 4 or even 5 soldiers of each faction, but I'm trying to keep my expectations realistic. LEGO may even include as few as 2 of each faction, or potentially skip generic Rohan soldiers altogether, although that would feel pretty disappointing for a battle-focused set like this. As for the price, I'm really hoping LEGO can keep it below $240. The Shire felt a bit expensive for what you got, and this set will need a strong figure lineup to justify a similar price point. That said, even if it comes in a little higher than I'd like, I'd still be happy if it finally gives us official LEGO Haradrim and the return of Rohan soldiers. Honestly, that's the part of this leak that excites me the most. Not necessarily the Oliphaunt itself, but what those figures could mean for the future of the theme. Because if this set really does include both of those factions, that means LEGO is creating new prints, molds, and figure designs. Think about it. To make this set happen, they're potentially creating updated Rohan soldier prints and helmets, Haradrim warrior prints and headgear, and maybe some unique elements for figures like Theoden or Eomer. That's a lot of development work for a single set. LEGO rarely develops new prints and molds without trying to get as much use out of them as possible. That's especially true lately, where they've become much more selective about creating new elements. It would be a bit strange for LEGO to spend all that money developing these figures just to use them once in one of their smaller Lord of the Rings sets and never touch them again. That's why I think this set could be laying the groundwork for something much bigger. Right now, the biggest problem with collecting figures and building Lord of the Rings armies in 2026 is that the modern figures only exist in expensive sets, while the older figures have become incredibly expensive on the aftermarket. Gondor soldiers are locked behind Minas Tirith, Rohan soldiers haven't appeared in over 10 years, Haradrim have never officially been made, and orcs are mostly locked behind Barad-dûr or the Minas Tirith gift with purchase. Once LEGO creates all these modern designs though, one of the biggest barriers disappears. The development work is already done, and suddenly the theme opens up to a lot more possibilities. For years, Lord of the Rings fans have been asking for battle packs. LEGO already knows army building works. They've been selling Star Wars battle packs for years, and fans consistently buy multiples of the same set to build larger armies. That idea could translate perfectly to Lord of the Rings. Imagine an orc battle pack using the existing Barad-dûr orc parts, a Gondor battle pack using the soldiers from Minas Tirith, a Rohan battle pack using the new Rohan soldiers from the Oliphaunt, or even a Haradrim warrior battle pack using the new prints from the set as well. For the first time in a long time, the pieces are actually there for LEGO to do it, and that's what excites me more than the Oliphaunt itself. The set will probably be cool, but what it could lead to is even cooler. If LEGO is willing to move beyond giant display sets and start giving us affordable factions to collect again, the future of this theme suddenly looks a lot brighter. On top of that, 2027 also marks the 25th anniversary of the Two Towers. Now that might not mean much since it's the middle film in the trilogy, but it's still the kind of anniversary LEGO could choose to acknowledge with a major release. As for what else we could see in 2027, I think there are a few obvious candidates. For one, I think Edoras is a strong contender for the big display set of the year. Yes, this Oliphaunt apparently has the same piece count as the Shire, but it's also releasing on January 1st, just 6 months after Minas Tirith. Every modern Lord of the Rings set so far has released sometime between March and June. Barad-dûr launched June 1st, Minas Tirith launched June 1st, and although the Shire released in April, it was followed up by the Sauron bust in June. That's why I have a hard time believing the Oliphaunt is the only Lord of the Rings set planned for 2027. Releasing the themes only set in January would be abnormal from how LEGO has handled the theme so far. That's part of the reason I think this release could signal something different from the last few years. This also ties into my point about the Two Towers anniversary. The Rohirrim are such a major part of that movie that it would make perfect sense to get a major Rohan-focused set. If not Edoras, then Helm's Deep is another possibility. We already got a remake of Bag End with the Shire, so a modern UCS-style Helm's Deep set feels incredibly likely at some point. Personally, I think Edoras is slightly more likely because it offers something more visually different than Minas Tirith, whereas Helm's Deep is another large stone fortress. But honestly, either one feels realistic. If LEGO is releasing battle packs, then I could also see them expanding the theme with a few mid-sized sets. Osgiliath feels like an obvious choice. It could work as either a display set or a play-focused battle scene, and would give LEGO another excuse to include Gondor soldiers and orcs. A Witch King showdown featuring Eowyn, Merry, and another Fell Beast could also make for a fantastic set. Treebeard could work as a standalone build for like 20 to 30 bucks, and Ammon Hen could make a great smaller display or play focus set. There are honestly so many possibilities. This is important because battles are where LEGO naturally gets the most value out of minifigures. You can sell collectors a beautiful location once, but you can sell army builders the same figures over and over again. There are still so many major locations and scenes left in Middle-earth, and LEGO could realistically keep this theme going for years with unique sets every year. The first few years of the theme's return felt like LEGO proving that adult collectors would buy expensive Lord of the Rings sets, and they've clearly proven that there's a market for that. Now the question becomes whether they're willing to expand beyond it. Most Lord of the Rings fans have been saying the same thing for years. We love the giant display models, but we also want smaller sets, battle packs, and overall easier ways to collect the characters and factions that make Middle-earth feel alive. This feels like the perfect opportunity to do exactly that. Release a large display-focused Oliphaunt with highly desirable figures, then follow it up later in the year with battle packs and mid-sized sets that allow for more fans to get involved with the theme. I actually finished a video discussing the current problems with LEGO Lord of the Rings right before this leak came out, so keep an eye out for that because a lot of the ideas I'm talking about here connect directly with those issues. The Oliphaunt is the first leak set in a long time that feels like it's being designed around characters, factions, and a battle rather than just a location. If that's truly the direction LEGO is taking, I think a lot of fans are going to be very happy. As much as I love Rivendell, Barad-dûr, and Minas Tirith for their incredible builds, Lord of the Rings has always been about the characters, armies, and conflicts that shape Middle-earth as well. So while everything I've talked about here is still speculation, this leak is exciting because for the first time in a while, it feels like LEGO might actually be addressing the biggest problem with modern Lord of the Rings. Fans don't just want giant display models. We want armies, a wide cast of characters, and smaller ways to get into the theme. If the Oliphaunt is the first step towards that future, then 2027 could end up being one of the most important years this theme has had since it returned. Let me know what you think down in the comments. What figures do you want to see included in the Oliphaunt set? And if LEGO expands the theme in 2027, what sets do you want them to make? If you want to stay up to date on LEGO Lord of the Rings news, make sure to subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.